and welcome to the Fearless, Fabulous, and Feminine, a joint production between the US-Japan Council and the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center here on Maui. Good afternoon. My name is Deidre Teagarden. I am the Executive Director here at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, where our mission is to inspire people to find the hero within themselves through the legacy of our Nisei veterans. You can find out more information about our center on the website at nvmc.org. We have a wonderful global audience with us today, and we thank all of you for joining us. To our friends in Japan, we just want to say, Honjitsu wa o isugashii naka go sanka kudasari makoto ni arigatou gozaimasu. Today, we invite you into this conversation between Meredith Ching, Saedene and Malika Dudley. We are ecstatic to have these three talented, accomplished, and brilliant women share with us their insights and their experiences. I will get to their bios in just a bit. We wanted to give a big mahalo also to the US-Japan Council and the government of Japan for giving us the opportunity to be a part of their Regional Women in Leadership series. To give you a little bit more information about the series and the US-Japan Council, please help me welcome Navy veteran and President and CEO of the US-Japan Council, Ms. Suzanne Basala. Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you so much. Aloha. Thank you, Deidre, for putting this event together, and thank you to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. Really appreciate your work that you're doing and being partners on this project. And hello to everybody joining, whether it's your Friday afternoon. I'm on the West Coast, so it's Friday evening, and I know the folks from Japan, it's Saturday morning, so thank you. I was asked to just give a little bit of background about US-Japan Council, as well as about this series, the Regional Women's Leadership Series. And the US-Japan Council is about 10 years old as an organization, and it was founded by Japanese Americans who wanted to find ways to continue to strengthen the US-Japan relationship. And our founders have a lot of roots in Hawaii. Of course, Irene Hirano Inoue, who was our founding president, and we sadly lost her in April of this year, along with her husband, Senator Daniel Inoue. And many wonderful Hawaii leaders, including some that I see on the call here today, including Dennis Teranishi, Nora Nakasone, but really some of the founders were Colbert Matsumoto, Mike Hirai, Babi Ichikawa, all were part of creating the US-Japan Council, which was a way for people who really wanted to strengthen US-Japan relations to find a call to action and work together on that. And from the very beginning, one of the agenda items that the US-Japan Council tackled was women's empowerment and leadership of women, especially in the workplace. And some of our earlier activities included a Women in Business Summit that was held in Tokyo that became such a large event that Prime Minister Abe came and spoke at it after, I think maybe its third year. We also did a lot of activities supporting young people, especially middle school, high school, and college women, learning about women's leadership and mentorship in different ways. So it's really been an important part of the US-Japan Council mission, among many other activities that we're involved in. And I invite you to look at our website and learn more about our activities. I can go on and on about the council, but I'd rather just stay on this issue of the Regional Women's Leadership Initiative and where it came from. I became the president and CEO of US-Japan Council in May of this year. Earlier in my career, I worked for Irene as her executive vice president and COO, and I was in Washington, D.C. with Irene. And we noticed that when we would go to the many different events that you do during the day, and especially during the evening, diplomatic receptions, think tank events, events on the Hill, there were a lot of women that we were seeing, and they were women who we kind of knew but didn't know very well, but we knew who their names, and they were part of the same environment. They were interested in US-Japan relations, and they were women leaders. And so Irene had the idea to put together some informal lunches, and we brought these groups together, and pretty much everybody knew most people, but not everybody, and we didn't know each other that well. And Irene had us all go around and talk first about our families as an icebreaker, and then share what was going on in our careers. And it was amazing how quickly that energy turned into really important networking. And so the next time we saw each other at a reception or at a event on the Hill, we gravitated to each other and built those relationships and started to support each other at a personal level and at a professional level. And that's really what the people-to-people connections are about in US-Japan Council. So we had this idea to try to scale this project and find ways for women in different communities to get to know each other over a shared interest in women's leadership. Also out of a common interest in learning about Japan and about how women in Japan are being supported, especially under the Womenomics agenda of former Prime Minister Abe. And so that is the origins of the Regional Women's Leadership. And fortunately, we've had funding from the Japanese government to allow us to run this program for many years across many parts of the country. And we love that it's getting a chance to go to different parts of the country where we may not necessarily have reach with our programs. So very excited to hear you all talk story, learn from you, and turn the program back over to Deidre. Thank you again for partnering with US-Japan Council.
Thank you, Suzanne. We really appreciate it, and thank you for that introduction. It gives all of us a little bit better information about the US-Japan Council for those who may not know. Before we start, I wanted to let you know that we will be taking questions. There will be time at the end of the discussion for question and answer. So please feel free to send in your questions on that little bubble at the bottom left of your screen. We promise to get to as many as possible. So there you go. Now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Meredith Ching. Meredith Ching is the Executive Vice President of Alexander & Baldwin, a company that she joined in 1982 and became one of the company's youngest corporate vice presidents in 1988. Her community involvement has included the boards of Kapiolani Health Foundation, Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, the A&B Sugar Museum, Girl Scouts of Hawaii, the YMCA, Hawaii Medical, the Hawaii Medical Service Association, and Child and Family Services. Her government service includes appointments to the State of Hawaii Commission on Water Resource Management, the State Board of Agriculture, the City and County of Honolulu Charter Commission, the Mayor's Task Force to develop the Pacific Nations Center, and the Governor's Task Force on the Department of Environmental Protection. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Stanford University and a Master's degree in Business Administration from the University of California at Los Angeles. Born and raised in Hawaii, she is married and has a grown daughter who lives in San Francisco. Meredith, welcome.
Thank you, Deidre, for that nice introduction, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody.
I was going to say it's a little bit of everything.
Right. Yeah, right. So I think Deidre asked us to first talk about our backstory, a challenge or a fear that we've had. So my backstory is that I am very uncomfortable being in the spotlight such as today. So I was raised to keep your head down, work hard, excel in what you do, and earn promotions, but in a quiet way. However, and not by design, I've always found myself sticking out because I've ended up in male-dominated fields. So in college, my fellow engineering students, there were only 12% of us that were women. And then I went to work for Dillingham Corporation and A&B, both of which have very male-dominated businesses, such as construction and shipping and sugar plantations, real estate development. So I've had to learn to work in an environment where I'm the only woman, and I've always been the minority. And even as I moved up in management within my company, and more recently on a public company board, I've always found myself as a female and Asian in the minority. So it's a challenge for me, and one that I still work on to deal with what might be a self-imposed pressure to prove I'm not just a token female masquerading in these roles. So I do that by being well prepared so that when I am in the spotlight, whether it's small or large audience, I feel more confident. So I should thank the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center and the US-Japan Council for giving me yet another opportunity to grow.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for kicking off the panel with that information. You know, we really want to hear what challenges you have all encountered to, you know, get where you are today. So thank you for that. Um, the next person that I'd like to introduce is actually Saedene Ota. She is the partner of and founder of Say Design Group. She was born and raised in Hawaii. Saedene worked on the mainland before pursuing her dream of establishing a company back home. She is the owner and creative director of Say Design graphics firm with offices on Maui and in Honolulu. In only a decade of business, she garnered numerous awards, including multiple Pele Awards for her design work. In 2005, she was the USSBA's Small Business Advocate of the Year. And Ms. Ota's board involvement includes the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, Central Pacific Financial Corporation, Maui Economic Development Board, the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, and the Maui Memorial Hospital Foundation. Her past board participation includes the Hawaii State Art Museum and the Board of Regents. She also serves as the Maui representative for the United States Senator Mazie Hirono. Ms. Ota studied graphic design at the University of Hawaii, California State Northridge, and Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. She resides on Maui with her husband and her 2 children. Welcome, Saedene.
Hi, Deidre, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me this Friday afternoon, Aloha Friday. It's an honor to be here, especially in the presence of Meredith Ching and Milani. So a little bit of backstory in addition to what Deidre shared for me. I would say that growing up on Oahu and then on Maui, I was really fortunate to have parents that were very supportive, and I would say probably like just the right balance of not overbearing. I was a pretty good student in school and motivated to always help and volunteer, and I think that probably stemmed from my parents also being teachers, and that admiration for them, helping, you know, groom the next generation of leaders. So I think without really enforcing or being overbearing, I kind of grew from that and learned from that, and I was able to kind of grow on my own, and knew that one day that I'd want to come home and start my business in Hawaii, and that was my dream. My first job was actually in Chicago, which is a great city, and I loved it. But as a young woman, and after the 3rd winter, I'm like, this is too cold, and what am I doing here? I actually got back together with my high school sweetheart, Ken Ota, and that led me back to Maui to start my own business. And in doing so, it led me to a lot of opportunities in the sense that, you know, it's a small community, so it's referrals and people that are saying, hey, you're doing this, why don't you meet this person? And just through diligence and networking, I was able to grow my business. But I must say that as far as challenges go, I was young. I was, you know, my late 20s. And I was trying to get work from large hotels and corporations. So like Meredith, I was young, Asian, and female. And the only thing that I could do was prove my worth, which was fine. But my colleagues and competitors who were male had the opportunity of, say, you know, taking a potential client out to golf or having a drink after work, which I didn't have the fortitude to do, which again was fine, but I had to prove myself in other ways. So through that, I think it helped me kind of like understand that I needed to prove myself through my work. And I was happy that I did it that way and not through just a handshake and relationships and, you know, cocktails and drinks. And not saying that my other colleagues did it that made their way up that way as well, but it just kind of limits your growth, and it kind of shifts how your energy is in certain areas. So I think I grew from those challenges today.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I love these conversations because even if we all know each other, to hear these more personal stories, I think really brings us closer together. So thank you for sharing that. I'm now going to introduce our third panelist, Malika Dudley, KITV meteorologist, TV host, MC, and our host for the remainder of today's discussion. Malika Dudley is a graduate of Hilo High School and the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where she was a Regent Scholar. She attended Mississippi State University, where she earned her certification in meteorology and is currently finishing her master's in communicology at UH. Malika began her career in news at KGMB 9 in 2007. And during that time, she was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, was a regional winner of the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Journalism Award for her reporting on Hawaii's tsunami damage in 2011. In 2019, Malika was recognized by the Society of Professional Journalists Hawaii chapter in the category of science reporting. In her free time, the former Miss Hawaii is a black belt in karate, surfer, jewelry designer, singer, TV host, and freelance social media influencer and writer. Malika lives on Maui with her husband and their 2 children. So welcome, Malika. And we love having you here, and we want to hear your backstory as well.
Thank you so much, Deidre. And hello to everyone. Aloha, everyone. Coming to you from Pukalani, Maui, which is also where I come to you live from my home. Can you even imagine that? To do weather. So I did weather earlier today. It's been a while, but when I started, things definitely weren't as easy. So Deidre wanted us to talk about our fears and challenges. And for me, it was twofold. 1, I had no experience when I started in news. And 2, there was a definite stereotype on me. The no experience was easy to overcome because all you have to do is work hard, right? That's in your control. You just check your ego at the door, open your ears, be open to constructive criticism, and really just have to take it day by day, just keep learning. And as we all know, every journey begins with a single step. I had to, for me, the way that it worked was I would have to get critiqued every single day on my tapes that I would do by Guy Hagi or Keahi Tucker or my boss or Stacy Lowe. And I was 25 at the time, so it was pretty difficult to not take things personally, but at the same time, it was a great learning experience. And it was something that was completely in my control. The other thing was not so much in my control, very difficult to overcome a challenge of being stereotyped because it's not about me really, it's about everyone else. I was a Miss Hawaii once, and that can mean different things to different people. But for the most part, most people just see that as a beauty pageant. And I went into the Miss Hawaii pageant because I needed scholarship money. So I was a Regent Scholar, but then it ran out and I needed more money for school. I'm the oldest of 4 kids and my parents had 3 more coming. So I was basically on my own to try to do that. My parents were teachers as well, Saedene. And so basically through the Miss America Scholarship Program, which is the #1 provider of scholarships for women in the world, I was able to fund my 3 years of meteorology school, and it was amazing. It took me through, but it came with the stereotypes. So I found out later that when they had announced that I would start at the news station, that the boys were all talking about it and looking forward to me coming on. On the flip side, the women weren't all so happy. In fact, Stacy Lowe, who is now a dear friend of mine, but when she first found out, and she's the first to tell you the story, so I can share it with you. When she first found out, she was mad. She was like, how could you guys just go out and hire some Miss Hawaii with no experience? And our boss had the foresight to basically tell me that Stacy wanted to take me out for dinner, but he forced Stacy to take me out for dinner. So we got to know each other and hit it off right away. And it, you know, it really shows that all it takes is really that you need to make relationships, you need to build relationships in order to get over a stereotype. So those were my fears and challenges at the beginning of my career. And so on that note of stereotypes and maybe biases, one of our first questions that we wanted to bring up to the panel is, have you ever been on the receiving end of a situation of bias or observed one? And what exactly happened and how did you overcome that? So why don't we start with Saedene?
Oh, sure, since I popped up first. Yeah, biases. So being from the creative field, you get biases as well on that side as well too. You know, not attorney, not an accountant, but a graphic designer. And there are certain stereotypes when it comes to art, you know, the so-called art. So this is a story that I will never forget because it kind of drove me, really. My husband, who's opening a warehouse on Maui, had a big production, a big opening, invited all of his vendors in, a lot of engineers and big firms. And I had just moved back from Chicago and I was just starting with my new business. And so I chit-chatted with one of the women that was from the engineering firms, and she said, oh, so what do you do? And I said, oh, you know, I'm starting my own graphic design firm. And she goes, oh, that's so good. Since Ken has the business, you can do all that fun stuff. I'm like, what? Like, excuse me? I'm like, no, this is a real business. And, you know, and she didn't mean any harm, I'm sure. But it kind of like, and it, you know, ironically, it came from a woman, right? It's like, okay, so you're the wife of a man who has this very successful business. So you don't have to, you know, no pressure. You can just play, you can do whatever you want. And so, you know, it kind of put a little chip on my shoulder, I guess, in a sense, which is great because now it's like, you know, I'm going to prove her wrong. You know, you know, it's not about that. This is not like, you know, some
Our
funny
internet's
thing
going out on me.
Oh, no.
Meredith, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you,
Sorry.
Meredith.
No worries.
I know, we got you. Yeah, so that was like one example that really kind of stood out for me. And this was very, very early on in my career when I just moved back to Maui. So it's something that stuck. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, Meredith, are you, I know you're having a little bit of issues with your internet, but if you'd like to pop up, you can, or I can take over with what mine is.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm moving to my daughter's bedroom.
Hey, you know, this is live. It's authentic.
Yep.
All moms here.
How's this?
That is one thing that ties us. We're all mothers.
Yeah.
We're all hard workers.
I cannot guarantee what this room looks like behind me, but
it's adorable.
Can you hear me? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the question about bias?
Yeah, so what have you experienced bias yourself, or have you observed it, and can you share with us what that is, your story?
Yeah. So I think I've been fortunate enough not to experience really extreme bias to the extent where you lost a promotion or your work was debased. But I think that's largely because my career has been in Hawaii 100%. And there are definitely barriers here, but they're a little bit lower, right, than other places. But of course, you're going to experience those instances of implicit bias, I guess is the popular phrase now. So the example I always give is when I first started out, remember this is 30 years ago, I'd be in these male-dominated fields, so I'd be the only woman in a meeting. And the question would come up about meeting minutes. Now you have to remember that this was the technological dark ages where there's no laptops. So meeting minutes were somebody's handwritten notes that were Xeroxed and circulated, or maybe somebody typed them up. But they basically, when they asked that question, every head in the room would turn around and look at me. And so I didn't want to do that, right? So I would just use humor and kind of say, you got to be kidding. Have you seen my handwriting? I mean, chicken scratch is better. This is not the right choice for this group. So again, I think there's many instances where I've kind of used humor to deflect these kind of gender-based biases. But as I said, I've been fortunate.
Thank you for sharing that, Meredith. Yeah, for me, I've gotten it from both males and females. I can give you just a couple of, because social media is such a big thing these days, I can give you a couple of examples from social media. So these are people that I didn't know. And fortunately, the people who follow me are all very kind. And I have to say, 99% of people are so kind and sweet and supportive and have so much aloha. And I'm so grateful for that. But every now and then, over my 10 plus year career, I've gotten some haters, is what people like to name them. So once I was doing a hurricane update. Mind you, it was pro bono, but I had just landed in San Francisco and there was a hurricane. I can't remember which hurricane it was, but a hurricane was bearing down on us and I needed to give an update, or I felt the need, as it's just my work ethic, to give an update. And so I did, and it was live on Facebook for Maui Now and Big Island Now. And at the time I was getting eyelash extensions and they looked great. I mean, they really did. And they cut down a lot on the time for doing hair and makeup. I mean, you ladies, you understand, right? But people started commenting on them. And the first comment, first of all, I don't really read the comments when I'm going live. Clearly, I have better things to worry about when there's a hurricane bearing down on us. And I actually didn't notice the comments at all until afterwards. And someone else mentioned, someone I didn't know said, "Oh my gosh, that was so inappropriate what those people were commenting about you." And so I went back to look, because I like to kill people with kindness. I love to lead by example and to say, "Oh, thank you so much for your thoughts and your opinions," and say something that either will help them to internally reflect on maybe their actions, but in a kind way. Yeah, so anyway, I read the comments. The first one was funny. It was, "You could start a hurricane with those eyelashes." And I thought, yeah, I laughed. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny." And I literally wrote back, "Ha ha, I probably could. In fact, that's how hurricanes start." You've heard the whole butterfly, right? The butterfly flaps its wings and then eventually it turns into a hurricane, right? And so I guess that was a bit scientific for me too. But then it just took off. And there were hundreds of comments, and they got nastier and nastier, to the point where they were saying that I was not credible because of the way I looked, because of my eyelashes in particular. And it was interesting to read. And I think at the time I wasn't yet on my personal journey of being able to handle that kind of judgment the way that I can now. It was definitely eye-opening to see just how, inappropriate and rude and unfortunate it is that there are people that feel the need to cut people down for no reason at all. And there were people that came to my defense, and it turned into this whole war. And I stayed out of it a bit, but I also needed to, put my foot down and say that the way that I look has no impact on what comes out of my mouth, especially if I'm working for you pro bono.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting, Malika, that you don't think about that bias. Like, there's biases for if you're attractive. So once you're like considered pretty or attractive, then you're not as credible or smart or which is really, really interesting. That as women, we're always trying to look pretty and attractive and whatever else. But if you look too sexy or too whatever, then you kind of like risk credibility, which is, unfortunate, but that's, I guess, the world that we live in a sense.
Well, Saedene, that's why when I first started at this news station and I had no experience, the first thing I did was sign up for meteorology courses. I wanted to. I want to know what I'm talking about, but I also knew that in order to combat that stereotype, I needed that for myself to be able to say, well, here, I worked for this.
Interesting. Really, really interesting.
Recently, actually earlier this week, a male typed out, because I went with no makeup. No makeup
Wow.
this time. Too much makeup last time. No makeup this time. There was a tsunami advisory that was posted. It was extremely, I don't know if you guys got the pop-up notification about the tsunami advisory, but it was very confusing because earlier in the day, it was deemed that it wasn't a threat. And then all of a sudden we get an advisory. And so people are freaking out. And I felt the need to come on right away and just explain it to people. It was confusing to me. So if it's confusing to me, I know it's confusing to you. I had no makeup on. I had my hair, you know, like tit a bun. And I was wearing whatever I was wearing, right? And this is on social media. I'm not going on KITV4 News, right? And a man said that maybe next time I should take 10 minutes to look more professional.
Oh my God.
Easy.
Yeah. Yep. That's a tough thing about social media, right? I mean, and you put yourself out there, so yeah, you're open to so much judgment all the time. So I really give you credit for doing that. I
find it's a learning opportunity. You know, whenever something like that happens, to not just, as Meredith was saying, you know, highlight this implicit bias, but also to show people the way that we can respond to these things. And so on that note, why don't we talk about resiliency? What do you guys do to break through? What makes you resilient? I actually went on Instagram and I got a list from some of my followers of the things that they do, and maybe this will also help you guys. Let me pull it up. It was, some women said that they just stick to their gut. They listen to their na'au. Some women said they maintain their relationships because it's crucial to staying balanced. Exercise, meditation and self-care, spiritual connection, ignoring it and moving on, and of course, women supporting women. So who wants to take that one? How are you resilient? What are your tools?
Meredith, you go first.
I'll take it. Okay, so I don't know if they're tools. I'm basically stubborn. So I think that very stubborn. Ask anybody around me. And I think that helps. And I trust my instincts. And I think just life's experiences have helped me build a pretty good instinct, especially on people. So in terms of dealing with issues or dealing with people, I'm stubborn, but I do try to treat everybody around me with respect. And I think that whether they're above me, below me, whatever, I think you need everybody. So I think that helps as well. Basically, how I stay resilient is to make sure I exercise and just have recreational sports, and I'm able to get out of the job somehow mentally and do other things. So that's kind of my resiliency tips.
Yeah, for myself, I think when I'm up against a challenge or a difficult situation, I always look at it as a challenge that I want to beat or accomplish. So I kind of like, oh, okay, whether it's competing for a bid or I didn't get something that I thought I should have, then I kind of reflect and I'm like, well, you know what? That means I did something wrong. And I think that's part of it. You know, it's like having that self-reflection so that you can do better next time around. And so if I am down, I just kind of see it as an opportunity to step up again. And I don't know how that came about, but I guess through work as well too. Any of my colleagues would say that, you know, even through this COVID situation, I'd say we lost like at least 60 to 70% of our work, because a lot of our work is hotel and resort based. And so I said, well, okay, what do we do now? This is a good time for us to clean house. Let's figure out how to be a better business. Let's clean up our accounting. Let's dig into billing, you know. And I saw it as a time for pause and opportunity. And now I can honestly say, I think I feel better and stronger about our business than ever. So it's like always kind of taking the bad and somehow turning it into an opportunity for good. And that's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, that perspective shift, that changing your outlook really helps a lot. And that personal development of looking within and saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to give myself grace that we all make mistakes. We're all human. And this next step, this next decision is one that I can make to be a better person, to be better at my job, to be better as a mother, to be better in general. And that's okay. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're good, 5 minutes ago.
Right. And I think, yeah, that was one point that I wanted to point out, like, for any woman, I think, we always want to make the perfect dinner, like dress our kids in the best Halloween costume or get them to wherever on time. I can say honestly, like, I'm not that good of a mother. I'm like kind of an okay mother. I just get by. And so I give myself that kind of grace, because if you think you're going to be perfect at everything, you're just going to kill yourself. Right. And in the end, it's just not worth it. You just gotta kind of like weigh all of your priorities and see what's really truly important. So yeah, I think forgiveness and knowing that you can make mistakes and that there is room for error, that's how we get by.
I think that's absolutely right. I kind of looked at that. I know one of the questions is about life balance. And I think key to having a happy life balance is being able to forgive yourself and to realize that, something's got to give, that you're not going to be, as you said, you're not going to be the best at anything. So I can remember going to the school snack sessions and having to tell myself, it's okay that I'm bringing the Foodland pre-decorated Valentine's cookies in the plastic container, when the other mothers were baking these cute little heart-shaped cookies, and they brought frosting in little squeeze bottles in every shade of pink and red. It's okay. I'm still a good mother, right? But yeah, just got to prioritize.
Yeah. Like just realizing that it's okay for you to do you.
Yeah, right.
Right.
You do you, and you do you, and you do you, and I'll do me. And that's fine. And we can all live in harmony, I promise. Well, let's go on to that life-work balance question. So what does that actually look like for you? How involved or uninvolved is your spouse? Is that the way that you like it? Do you think there's room for improvement? Who wants to take it first?
I'll go. Saedene, you want to go?
Yeah,
okay.
No, go ahead, Meredith.
So obviously life balance is different for everybody. Not everybody wants a career, not everybody wants family, but for me, it has been being able to have a meaningful career and a really rich family life, as well as good friends and being able to travel. And I've been fortunate in many ways, it's not just me to being able to achieve it. I've been fortunate in that, one, I had my child kind of late in life or later in my career, and where I would never propose that as a strategy for any woman, it worked out because I had done those relationship building things and the time consuming time away and all the foundational things you need to build a good career here in Hawaii before I had my child. And then secondly, I had reliable help at home. I have a very participative husband who was an equal partner in pickup, drop off, lunch preparation, laundry, doing the dishes. And then we were fortunate to have a babysitter that came every day to our house. It was a very stable environment for my daughter. So a lot of support system, a lot of luck. And also, again, being able to realize this was going to involve compromise, and I wasn't going to be able to be the best at everything. And I would feel like a failure of a mother most of the time, but it was okay.
Yeah. Same for me too, as far as like, how do you do the work balance? That's a great thing about being in Hawaii and living at home with friends and family and within a small community, because you really rely on everyone to help in the upbringing of your children and the survival, or even my business. My mom, she handles HR and a little bit of bookkeeping. Ken's, my husband's mom, my mother-in-law, she would babysit my kids when I was starting my business. And till a couple of years ago, she was making dinner for us, I'm ashamed to say, like almost every night because I'd be working late. And so, yeah, I'm just as lucky as Meredith. And then you have that support system. And that's like the beautiful thing about living in Hawaii and in this community. It's okay to ask. And I think, you know, had I lived in, say, California or Chicago, there's no way, I think there's no way that I would be where I'm at this point in my life. It makes a huge, huge difference. And my friends as well too, they'll help me with fundraisers or, you know, throwing events or whatever. I mean, they're just down to help me. And that's what Hawaii is all about. So I think it's like, don't be afraid to ask as well too. It's surprising how wonderful family and friends are when it comes to, you know, helping yourself, helping your family, helping your business. And I've been super, super fortunate. And that's how I've done it, really. That work-life balance is support. It's like complete support from everyone. Yeah. How about you, Malika?
Yeah, that's really interesting that you talk about that. It brings me back to some of the classes I was taking last semester with the difference between individualist societies and collectivist societies. You know, we have this happy medium here in Hawaii where we have a little bit of both, right? You two are independent, hardworking women. You went out and got it. That's like the individualist side. And then the collectivist side with, you know, the multi-generational families that help out and friends become family. We all call our friends, you know, they call them uncle, auntie, you know, grandma, grandpa, and that's how we grew up. Similar to you guys, what I'm hearing is communication, planning, compromise, and support are the things that help you with work-life balance. For me, the same, except I didn't have as much support. Our families are here, but they're on another island. And so it makes it, especially now with COVID, you know, it makes it so much more difficult. So for me, the thing I would add to that list is boundaries. Being able to stand up for myself. I left my first job because my boundaries were being violated, and they were violated pretty severely while I was pregnant and in a very unkind communication. And immediately I told my husband, and he said, "You're putting your 2 weeks in. That's it. You're not going to stand for that." And so I'm so fortunate to have him as a support system, not only just for the actual support, but because he helped to guide me through these things that I didn't know I had within me to do. And so that was my first instance of setting up a boundary. And then I realized that because I don't have the support system to call, you know, my mom or dad to just come over and watch the kids because I have to go do this work or that work, we had to, you know, basically I had to talk to my bosses about boundaries. I had to tell them, this is what I'm able to do for you. This is what I expect. And these are my priorities. And so it's been really interesting getting back into the workforce because I was laid off because of COVID. And then KITV4 asked me to come on. And so I've been on the job for about 2 months now. So it's that awkward like communication period where you're getting to know everyone, except I'm not even in the office to know people. And I've been so pleasantly surprised. I have a female boss. I'm not sure if it's because of that or just the person that she is, but being able to tell her, you know, I cannot do mornings. I'm sorry, because my body does not respond well. And then I cannot be present for my family and my children. I'm homeschooling, I'm in school, and these are my priorities. And she wrote back, "I understand," which I would have never, at 25, I would have never written that to my boss and said, I need to tell you something. And so I think the boundaries and the hard conversations need to be had in the workplace, in the home, amongst friends, you know, I mean, they need to be had. And that's what helps me with my work-life balance, because it's not just about there being balance at work and the priorities, but even within relationships, that if there's a relationship that's bothering me, I gotta address it right away.
Right.
Yeah.
This is so interesting to me, because as I was preparing for this panel, it like a light bulb went off to me on how different things are now for women than they were for me. and in a good way, because the tactics that I had to employ were different than what like you're doing now. I would never have spoken up like that. And not, I think not because of who I am, but because of the environment. So I think women today are more of a recognized group, whereas when I first started out, we were individuals just trying to find our path forward, right? Mm. We didn't have the support. And so I strove more to fit in and as I said, not stand out and not make a fuss. But I think there's been so much progress made now that I would never recommend that to my daughter. I would never advise her that way, right? Totally different.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that COVID has helped with work-life balance? Has it hindered it? Has it impacted it in any way? I know there's some research out there, but I want to hear about your personal experiences.
We were just touching about it a little bit before we started our conversation, how because of COVID and working from home, you actually get to spend more time with your kids, with your children, which is rather nice actually for that opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of adjustments, but because my children are teens, you know, they're at the age where they don't want to be around mom and they want to do their own thing with their friends. But through the summer, through the fall, they're kind of stuck at home, which is awesome, you know. And I actually spent a lot of time with my daughter, who is a sophomore now, but, you know, we cook together, we plan our dinners, you know, we talk about diet, we exercise together. So it's really, really, really quite nice. I mean, that's like the, you know, the silver lining, I guess, with everything that's happened for me anyway. So yeah.
So my personal experience is like yours is. We've said we've had this bonus time with our kids that I probably didn't think I would ever spend. But when I observe other people in my company, other women in my company, it cuts both ways. So the kids have had to be homeschooled and they're dealing with entertaining and caring for the kids while trying to do their normal 8-hour workday. Well, obviously not normal, but it's still hard for some. So I think it all depends on what the division of labor is in your home. But what I am hopeful about is that what COVID has taught all of us is that you can work remotely pretty effectively for a pretty long period of time, you know, albeit a finite period of time. I think ultimately we all need face-to-face interaction to move forward, but you can do it. So a lot of the things that have held women back, like going on maternity leave or not being able to travel, you know, because of childcare, or working late at night, it's now acceptable to work remotely. So I'm hoping that moving forward, what we've learned in terms of technology and meeting remotely will help to take away one of the biases that have held women back.
I think it's interesting you say that because about 6 years ago, I started working from home as a meteorologist, and no one else was doing that. And so it was judged, I suppose. Most people, I think, were like, great, good for you, you know, and I'd rather get it right now than wait for you to drive down to the studio and put your, you know, whatever it is. But there was an instance during Hurricane Lane. I don't know if you guys remember that one. That was a big one. I was on my way to France. And so in Minneapolis, I did my first update, and then I landed in Paris and I did my second update. And I kept doing updates as I was, you know, across the other side of the planet, and I was doing updates for Lane, and it actually worked out better for me to be able to give people information because of the time difference. And so I always had, you know, I was trying really hard to have their back, and I felt that from people, that they were like, you've got our back. I came back and my boss was upset with me. And basically what I heard behind the scenes was that he didn't want me reporting from any old hotel room, or, you know, he felt it was unprofessional for me to be reporting basically from home, you know, even though, even under those circumstances. And so it's been so, for me with COVID, it's been great because now everyone's doing what I'm doing. So now like oh, that's normal. So it's normalized.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But
Working
I agree
remotely
with
is
you guys
normalized.
that like the balance, the distribution of I can't remember the exact term you used, but you know, between you and your spouse with the division of labor, that's what you're saying, is so important. It's communication. It's communicating that to make sure that you can set up something that works for your family. And also that there are so many challenges when it comes to working from home full time and having a homeschool and trying to balance all of that. For me, it's definitely been a huge challenge to have the children right outside my door. They're not here now, thank goodness. Hubby took them. But that happens a lot. It happens a lot where I'm like, Vi, don't trip over the cable. I won't be live anymore. You know, I got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh my God.
And the mom guilt, you know, you were telling us and you tell yourself clearly that you're not the best mom. You know, I mean, we all do that. We all do that. And you know what? We're all great moms because we are the only mother to our children.
Yeah.
And good point. Good point.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
As long as you love them, as long as you love them, you're all good. You're doing your best.
Yes.
So yeah, that division of labor is really important, but work-life balance, I think, is just always going to be a struggle and something that changes. I mean, Meredith, you guys have older kids, so I'm sure it's changed throughout the years.
Yeah, it gets easier, Malika. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It'll get easier.
True.
As your kids get more independent, yeah, they'll be able to feed themselves eventually. You know, finally Ken can feed himself barely, my husband. By the way, I have to say, if Ken sees this, that he's a great husband and he helps with the kids too, or else he'll be mad. So I just wanted to put that plug in for him.
We are all very lucky to have such great support in our spouses. I wanted to end with, why don't we talk about what you think the traits are of a fabulous, fearless, feminine leader? What are those traits? And I think that goes hand in hand with the advice, you know, that you would give for women entering the workplace, you know, because that's probably what they should strive for.
For me, I would say women have, I think, and this is a generalization, they have an innate quality to be empathetic, and I would say good listeners. They tend to be. And it's finding that balance of being a good listener and having empathy, but then kind of pivoting so that you also can evolve from just being the listener and the taskmaster to a leader. I think women are great at getting things done, doing checklists, because we're so, you know, that's the thing we got to do. We got to get it done. But to kind of take that leap forward to become the leader, the one that delegates, and the one that isn't the one, you know, just doing the thing, but leading others, I think that's the balance that we need to find as women. And I'm guilty of it, and I still struggle with it, to be honest, as well too, because I'm so used to, okay, I got to prove my worth. I'm just going to do it, as opposed to coming to the table and saying, I have this great idea. Who wants to pick up on it? You know, I was like, no, I can do it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. You know, that kind of thing. And I think, you know, it'll take time, and there are women that are really, really good at it, and I admire them. But, you know, for us to kind of step up to the table and have that kind of confidence and courage to be a leader as opposed to a listener, that's, you know, that would be, I guess, my advice for, you know, young women that are, you know, starting to kind of find themselves and where they want to be. That's, to me, that's what I'm searching for as well too.
Empathy, confidence, courage, and listening skills.
Yeah, all of it. That's a good package, I think.
What about you, Meredith?
I kind of agree with that. I think women have a stronger ability to put themselves in other people's shoes. And what I found is that helps you get things done, right? People are going to do something, are more likely to agree to something if you're addressing it from their perspective. So, and I think women have a better time of doing that. But I can't agree more with say that there is a gap between that and leadership, that we all have been used to being doers. And it's exactly what you said, that the reluctance to have somebody else do it, and they're not going to do it quite as well. You really have to learn to trust others, and maybe set it up for them so that they're not going to fail too, that it helps the larger picture. But yeah, Say kind of went exactly where I was going to go.
We've added trust and guidance. So giving people guidance and being able to let go and trust them once you've given them that guidance to help them succeed. I love all of that. And I think vision, perseverance, passion, maybe to add to that, you know, that just the passion for what we do. And that's why it's so important for those women that are entering the workplace to eventually find something you love. You know, maybe you're in a company and you're not in the right position quite yet, but you can get there, you know, so find something that you're passionate about, that you're gonna love doing, because then, I mean, it's the cliche, right? You'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do, but it's so true. It's so true. And then having that vision, and I think that's also what you were talking about, though, both of you, it's the vision, right? Because you've got the vision, and then that's why you don't want to give it to other people. So like, that vision looks good.
Yeah.
But then to give them that guidance to help all of us. We need to build relationships to be able to have that trust, and the empathy helps with that as well. So I love that. I love that package that we kind of created, the three of us together.
Yeah, that's good. We should write a book.
I think women also have to not be afraid to be self-promotive. They tend not to say I can do something unless they have done it or are totally competent in it. But they have to learn, just totally to be more self-promotive and confident that you have the tools to do something if you don't even have the exact experience. You can do it. So.
Yep, so true.
Well, I've been listening to all of you and taking tons of notes. I love this: trust, empathy, confidence, courage, listening, vision, perseverance. I mean, it's things that everybody can utilize regardless of gender, but I mean, great values. So we have a bunch of questions that have come in, and I know we want to get to as many as possible. One that is recurring is basically, you are all busy, and yet you do so much. You are serve on so many boards. You're doing things like this. How are you able to say no? When is it okay to say no, and how do you say no nicely? You know, who wants to take that question first?
We're thinking, like, when do we say no?
Yeah. And aren't I always nice? No.
I think I say no when I know it's not the right fit, you know? So I used to say yes to everything, absolutely everything. And I felt that it meant I was selfless, and like I'm a giving person for not saying no. But you have your priorities, and time is precious. And so I think when it's not the right fit, I don't feel bad for saying no. And I try to lead them in a direction to someone who might be a good fit.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. Like when I was younger, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can help you with that, or be on that board or whatever. Now I kind of like, okay, wait, take a pause. You know, before you say yes or no, I will, say, let me get back to you. Let me think about it. And more often, you will come back with the answer that's true to what you really want to do, as opposed to trying to, I think, and that's the thing. I think we're constantly trying to like please people and, make sure we're doing the right thing, and be on the right side and make them happy. But by taking a pause before you answer, to really think about what you want to say and what will make you, or else you're going to be complaining the entire time if you say yes and you don't want to do it in the first place. So that didn't happen overnight. I mean, that took me a long time to get to that point where I knew that I should like think a little bit before I react too fast.
So I'm older than both of you, and I say know a lot at this stage, just because it's that instinct. I know what a situation that's going to work well, that I like the group that I'm working with, or the cause is very passionate, and I can just tell. So I just try to say no nicely, but it's no.
Well, we're glad you all said yes to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that. The next question is something that I think you all do instinctively, but it's mentoring. What is the role of a mentor? How important is it? And how have you learned from mentors? And what do you try to do as a mentor?
So I'll start because I've had great mentors through my career, but they've all been male, right? I haven't had the benefit of having a female mentor. And I can't tell you how much it's moved my career forward, having their support, their guidance, pushing often. I can remember just starting with the company, and Robert Pfeiffer, who was the CEO of the company at the time, told me to be chair of their charitable giving committee. And I hadn't even served on it. I had no idea, what the budget was, what they did. And he just pushed me into these roles, which was great. And I think that's what mentors can do. They can help prepare you and push you to do things that expands your toolboxes, I'll call it, your experiences and your skills.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've had mentors and people that I admire from close and from afar, all through my career. And in any situation, good or bad, is what you get out of it and how you grow. And whether it's through clients like Meredith and Chris, I consider them mentors that I've, learned from and grew with. And for me, mentorship for, that next generation, that younger group of people, it's so important, because, it adds value to our community. I mean, that's what we want in the end, is to grow our community in a positive way. And the only way that we can do that, or one of the key ways that we can do that, is by sharing your thoughts, your experience, and your mistakes, so that they can learn from it and evolve as well too. So through my employees, they start off working with me as an employee, but those that I see that they have interest in helping the community, I'll push them. I'll bring them on a board. They're like fresh and young and they have these great ideas. So I try to do that as much as possible too, and kind of share with them what I've learned. I think it's so important for our community.
I think on that note, sharing stories, you were talking about sharing stories, right? That sharing stories is just so powerful. It's how we build connection between people. It's how we build relationships, and that we all need to tell our stories more often, and not just the stories, the good stories, right? The self-promoting stories, but also the stories of struggle, to help others, to inspire them, and to help them to know that they're not alone. And so my mind went here, even though I know we're talking about specifically mentoring, but my mind went to social media, and that, anyone can be a mentor. Just present yourself, tell your stories, live your values, and you become a mentor for others. And it's a beautiful thing that's kind of happened organically for me over social media, with just sharing my life and my struggles and how I get through things. I love to keep myself open and available to anybody in the industry that wants to talk to me, or sit down, or Zoom, or whatever it is. And that's always been, I feel like I get more out of it than they do sometimes. And then on the flip side, having a mentor, personally, I feel like I did in the beginning, I had mentors, but that I've really been lacking that relationship, and I really wish I had it. So to those of you that want a mentor and don't know how to get a mentor, clearly you can, you know, try to like force that relationship by identifying someone that you really in your community, your company or whatever, and trying to build a relationship. But also you can just do that personal development. There's mentors online everywhere, and they are accessible 24/7. And I have to tell you that over the last couple of years, that is what has helped me the most, is just being a part of an online community where I can listen to videos and learn and take notes and journal. And I do it with my husband, and we discuss things. And so that kind of has helped to fill that void of not having an actual mentor in my life.
Great. Okay, here's a combined question. The first part of it is, when do you take the high road? You know, maybe somebody has said something to you. When do you take the high road and just let it go? But when do you decide to maybe tell somebody about it? The one specific question is, any advice for a young woman who is receiving biased comments from a male colleague who is higher than her in the company? So answering, you know, both of those questions. When do you just let it go? When do you go do something about it? And what is that thing that you do when you decide to do something about it? Meredith, would you like, Malika?
Yeah. I think that's a good question for Meredith.
High road, you know?
Yeah.
The high road is always something you can take, whether you address it or you don't. You can take the high road because it's the way that you carry yourself and the way that you address it, that you know, if you live your values, then you're taking the high road. This happened to me, like I said, in my first job, and I just took the weight of it on myself and was crying, and it hit me emotionally, and it was awful. And I needed that guidance from my husband to help me along the way to do something about it. And I ended up forwarding that awful email to my higher boss and, you know, asking him for help. But currently I'm not in that position anymore. I don't know what I would do right now if someone in my workplace was face to face doing something like that. Probably talk to HR and get guidance from someone before acting.
So my answer is going to be kind of simplistic. I take the high road when it doesn't matter, and I call people on things when it does matter. And I guess when it does matter means when it crosses my boundaries, whether it's my values boundaries or my legal boundaries. In the situation that I think you're talking about, Deidre, I mean, I would say something to the person and go higher. That seems to cross your personal and legal boundaries. So again, a little bit instinctive, but when it doesn't matter, I think taking the high road is to protect my own self, right? To make sure I don't go low in situations.
I agree. I mean, if it's something that's out of your control, or it's a detriment, like you said, Meredith, or overstepping your boundary, I think you know, you would have to take action. But if it's not that big of a deal, if it's, you know, if it's not worth it, then taking the high road is always, you know, the more you know, I think this, not the safer, but it's just not worth it. And I believe in karma as well too, that what goes around comes around, and it'll somehow, that situation will come up again for that person, and it'll at some point come back to whoever it is and, you know, bite them in the butt. I truly believe that.
Okay, so we are going to go to our last question. It's kind of a broad question, but it's a really important one. And what do you want to see for women in the future? what is your vision of what you want for women in the future based on all of your life experiences?
Okay, I'll start. I think I want to see a work world where you don't feel forced to talk about sports or drink whiskey, and that office office banter can be about, if you want it, fashion or facials or emotional engagement, and that there are equal women in the management ranks and boardrooms. And I think most of all that women look out for each other. Because again, in my day, we were like a little bit like the crabs in the bucket, and I'll probably have to admit, mea culpa myself, where you're pushing other women down because you think there are only one or two or a few spots at the top. And it doesn't need to be like that anymore. And so I'd like to really see a world where we look out for each other.
That's awesome. For myself, I would really like to see women to grow and become a better version of themselves, as opposed to feeling pressured from, being judged, or pressure on social media, or whatever it is, that to find their passion and to be their own true self at some point, and maybe not when they're first out of high school, but to eventually really come to the person that they are truly. Because I really believe that every person, man or woman, girl or boy, there's something special within everyone. And it's just like, whether it's a mentorship or someone that inspires them, that they can find something within themselves to, be a great human being and a community contributor. And that's kind of what I wish for the next generation of leaders.
I agree with you both. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have too much more to add. I think also that women, well, anyone coming into their own is just such a beautiful thing. And it's a lifelong journey. Every single day we get to know ourselves a little bit better. And the better we know ourselves and we know who we are, what we want, what makes us happy, then the better our work-life balance will be, the better the company that we work for will be, so yeah, I think just look within.
Fantastic. Thank you. I can't believe we have come to the end of this talk. What a great way to end the week, right? A totally great Friday Pauhana. And for those in Japan, a great way to maybe start your weekend. First of all, I want to thank all of our panelists so much for doing this, for taking time from your busy schedule and sharing some really, really personal stories and some great insight. Many thanks. And a huge mahalo to all of the people tuning in. This is being recorded, and we will send you a link in about a week to the talk, so you can share it and watch it again. To close this out, I would like to call back Ms. Suzanne Vasala, the President and CEO of the US-Japan Council. Suzanne, what do you think? Did you have a great evening?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a really great discussion. And, I always love having a chance to hear from women leaders and challenge myself to think about the issues at hand. But what's really striking to me, I haven't spent as much time in Hawaii. I've never lived in Hawaii. I've only been there for business trips. But I really felt a lot of that Hawaii spirit. And I thought, especially when you talked about the individualist versus collective and sort of the family piece, and how nice that is been for all of you in your careers, which I think is really, really terrific. What I really took away from this was, there were just a lot of things, but the importance of not taking things personal, I think, has been, for me as a leader, an important. It's easy to say, I'm not taking it personally, but it's so hard to do. And so I think it was really important that you stressed that. I thought the conversation about resilience and having grace towards yourself is one of the most important things we can do as leaders as well, and to be able to find a way to grow as leaders. I love the conversations about women, supporting women, and Meredith, kudos to you for being honest about how challenging that has been in our own careers to do that, but that we still can do as much as we can to support that going forward. And I also really liked, we talked about supportive partners and families. And I really loved the conversation about the difference between doing really well at what you're doing and becoming a leader, and the skills and the way you have to level yourself up in order to really be a leader. So I think this was a great discussion. I want to thank all of you for being so authentic and sharing with you. And again, thank Deidre for putting this together and hosting it. I also neglected earlier to mention two really important people. He's already dropped off, but we were joined earlier by Paul Yonomine, who is the incoming board chair of US-Japan Council and the chair and CEO of Central Pacific Bank there in Hawaii. So a big part of USJC's network in Hawaii. And I really wanted to thank Wendy Abe, who is on this call as well, who is the USJC staff person that's in the leader that's in Hawaii. And she really has been the glue for a lot of the USJC activities across the country and in Japan, but most importantly in Hawaii. And I know she's a women leader there in the community. So I really want to thank Wendy for all that she's done for the council and helping make sure that this event got brought to Maui. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to be part of your evening.
Well, thank you so much. We echo your mahalos. That's right. We would not be having this webinar if it hadn't been for a conversation that Melanie and I had with Wendy about 1.5 years ago. So we love working with Wendy. So mahalo. To everybody else, have a lovely weekend. Until we meet again, be well, stay safe, and ahui ho. Thank you so much.
Yeah.